Hello, thank you for listening to the Moist Boys Reviews. This is Josh. I just wanted to take a moment to tell you about the Anchor.fm app. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. What's up, everybody? You're listening to the Moist Boys Reviews. My name is Josh. Just wanted to let you all know that in this episode there will be no spoilers, so don't worry about that. I'll also put that in the name of the episode so everyone is aware of that, but just to let you know again, there will not be major spoilers. There might be some things that will be discussed, but nothing too major in this episode. If you want to hear a full discussion breakdown, head on over to the Moist Boys podcast. This weekend we will be discussing Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker in deep detail and in depth. It's going to be an interesting discussion for sure. So, the road to Star Wars under the Disney banner has not been an entirely smooth ride, and I think that those pressures have weighed on the filmmakers to a certain degree in this film. I think before I get into anything too in depth, I just wanted to take a moment and talk about the performances. I think from beginning to end, all of the performances, for the most part, are very solid. I think there's some good characterization here. I think there are some very strong performances, with maybe a couple of exceptions. As usual, Daisy Ridley shines as Rey. I think Finn, after the Last Jedi, has been given more to do here, and he is definitely less the butt of the joke, I think, than he was in that film, which is always nice. Oscar Isaac as Poe Dameron. I think in this film he has finally been able to achieve his abilities from what little we had seen from before. He is a much different character than he was in the previous film. And I think that might be the elephant in the room in this, is that while trying to split the difference of being an entirely new movie that is coincidentally in the middle of a series, or at the end of a series, I should say, and trying to continue on that story, I think is where this film's greatest weaknesses lie. Carrie Fisher, digitally brought back after her unfortunate and untimely passing back in 2016, I believe. I don't think that the digital humans are at a point yet where it's not noticeable. I think they did as good a job as you can do in that situation, but there's just a hint of that uncanny valley that is still present in this film. I think, without going into any spoilers, but I think that the performance that Adam Driver gives in this film is not his best. I think part of that is the writing. He is not he's not done well by the writing. Unlike the previous characters, I don't know if this was a product of him having a tight schedule, or if It was just in the writing process. At some point, his character was given short shrift, but I think in a film that has several weaknesses, that is also towards the top. Him not being a very compelling character. There are reasons for that, but they are not particularly satisfying. For those of you that have watched the trailer, you know that there is the return of Ian McDiarmid as Emperor Palpatine. And I'll just say it didn't work for me. I think there are ways that it could have, and this film took a way that didn't work for me very much at all. It's always good to see an Ian McDiarmid performance, but this is not the one that I wanted to see. This is not how I wanted to see it. There are several other returning characters in here as well. Billy D. Williams as Lando Calrissian. It's always good to see Billy D. in a film. He doesn't get too much to do because he's not as young as he used to be, but it's still always good to see him here. There are some bizarre casting choices in this. Dominic Monaghan is in here. Could have been played by anyone. Again, it's that bizarre splitting the difference between a cameo and a role that is large enough to do something with. There are several other characters that kind of get the short end of the stick as well. Rose returns in a way. Not that she's not in the film, but you could definitely get the feeling that J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson did not want to share their toys when they were making this film. And I think that's going to be the biggest takeaway from this, is that at the end of the day, Disney did not have an idea of what they were going to do. And so we really have three completely separate films with the same actors portraying almost entirely different characters from film to film, which is pretty distracting. This film had a lot of work to do to get us up to speed into a place where we could just begin a saga, and I think that's going to go down as the biggest stumbling block that this film has. And really, in the first half of the film, as you're watching things go along, you can kind of begin to see cracks in the storytelling, and by the time the halfway point comes around, you realize that it's almost entirely broken to pieces, in a way that the writers J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio were not able to bring together satisfactorily, in my opinion. For those of you that are aware of Chris Terrio's work, it shouldn't come as a surprise to you that this movie's screenplay is kind of a disaster and a mess, between Batman v Superman and the other works he's done. That kind of gives you an idea of what his storytelling style is, and this is no different. So be warned on that end. At the end of the day, I don't know if this is the movie that Star Wars deserves to finish the saga. I'm going to watch it several more times, at least one more time. We're going to see it as a group for the Moist Boys podcast, for those of you that listen to that. If you don't, please check that out. So I think I've been going back and forth on the rating scale. For those of you that aren't aware, we do in the Moist Boys podcast, one of our guests, Harley, created what we call the Clooney scale. So how many George Clooney's a film gets, and it's on a scale of 10. And I'm going to have to give Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, 6.5 Clooney's. After you've seen the film, head on over to the Moist Boys podcast. We're going to talk about it more there. We'll see if my score changes. I don't know if it will, but anything is possible, I guess. So thank you for listening to the Moist Boys Reviews. Please check out the Moist Boys podcast for more in-depth discussions. We've talked about all of the live-action, main, theatrically released Star Wars films, so that's a lot of fun. That's going to culminate this weekend. For those of you that are listening to this as it comes out, if you are listening to this after the weekend is over, head on over to the Moist Boys podcast for our in-depth discussion about Rise of Skywalker. As of this recording, we have not recorded it yet, so I don't know how long it will be, but I have a feeling it's going to be a discussion. So thank you for listening, and we will be back next time.